From the heart of the city too busy to hate. A progressive voice making too much sense for corporate media's comfort. This is The Ron Show, where we the people come first. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
So there's some thought anyway that there could be a little bit of a wobble going on when it comes to how Americans feel about the government shutdown and who is to blame for it. I don't really understand it when you consider that the Republican Party, the one party that has control of all three branches of government, they control the House, they control the Senate, so they control Congress. They control the White House, so they control the executive branch. They have a 6-3 majority on the U.S. Supreme Court, so they control the U.S. Supreme Court. They have all the levers. They could even, if they wanted to, get past Democrats not voting in the U.S. Senate for a clean continuing resolution if they wanted to take the nuclear option and do so. They don't do that much for the same way that you see sometimes folks act like they want to come at you, but then stand behind somebody else who isn't really fighting to keep them from coming at you, but stand behind them and brush up against them as if they are being held back. That's kind of what the GOP is doing right now. And it may be affecting some people. It may actually fool enough of their base anyway, for sure. That's not a question. But it may actually start to fool some other people in the center. It's even somehow inexplicably gotten Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman talking as if Democrats are the ones making people starve, which isn't the case. Fetterman tweeting, when was this? Yesterday. As a committed Democrat, I'm dismayed my party is playing chicken with the food security of 42 million Americans. I reject a political gamble that exposes a vulnerable constituency to widespread deprivation and chaos. There's one central problem with that, Senator Fetterman, and that is that the White House could sidestep this SNAP issue, and it's been done before, but the Trump administration is saying it will not tap its emergency funds to pay for emergency food aid. That, according to reporting from Grace Yarrow and Meredith Lee Hill at Politico, who write, the Trump administration will not tap emergency funds to pay for federal food benefits, imperiling benefits starting November 1st for nearly 42 million Americans who rely on the nation's largest anti-hunger program, according to a memo obtained by Politico. The USDA said in the memo that it won't tap a contingency fund or other nutrition programs to cover the cost of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is set to run out of federal funds at the end of the month. $40 billion for Argentina, none for you. The contingency fund for SNAP currently holds roughly $5 billion, which would not cover the full $9 billion the administration would need to fund November benefits. Again, $40 billion for Argentina. They could have maybe just taken 36 so that we had $4 billion set aside so that November was taken care of. That didn't happen. Even if the administration did partially tap those funds, it would take weeks to dole out the money on a pro rata basis, meaning most low-income Americans would miss their November food benefits anyway. So this isn't even something that they could do in a last-ditch effort right now. It's something they could have talked about in the very early stages of the government shutdown. They could have scored some points with that. But cruelty means more to MAGA than scoring political favor with the least among us. The icky poors. In order to make the deadline, the Trump administration would have needed to start preparing for partial payments weeks ago, which it has not done, according to this Politico report. White House and Trump administration officials warned earlier this week they were unlikely to shift funds around to avert SNAP lapsing for 40 million low-income Americans in November, instead blaming Democrats for the pending lapse. And John Fetterman helping them out with that. I've said this before, I'll say it again. This is a lot like watching one of those TV or movie dramas where the bad guy snags an innocent bystander, holds him in a headlock, and puts the pistol to that innocent bystander's temple and said, "Give me what I want, or this innocent person gets it." That's where we are right now. That is almost exactly where we are right now, where those who are the most imperiled to starvation in the greatest country in the world, right? Making America great again, right? They're the ones being made to pay the price so that those in power right now, of all of the branches of government at the federal level don't dare provide a dub for the Democrats. Perhaps Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey could pick up the phone and speak with Senator John Fetterman. I mean, it's two totally different states, so I guess not. But still, she brings some clarity to this conversation that Senator Fetterman seems to lack. She told reporters this on Monday. The facts are that Donald Trump right now is refusing to fund SNAP even though he's got the funds to do it. The facts are that every other president during a federal shutdown has continued SNAP benefits for kids, for our seniors, for people with disabilities, even during a shutdown, using contingency funds. Donald Trump is choosing not to do that. Donald Trump is choosing not to feed people in America, including in Massachusetts. Those are the facts. Again, that's Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey bringing some historical context to a current situation. I mean, honestly, outside of John Fetterman, I have to give Democrats their credit here. They have dug in because they know that it's a lose-lose situation for the least among us. Folks are either going to go hungry this November or they're going to be further impoverished by health care coverage or, pray tell, have to go without. And we all know that not having health care coverage isn't good for your health. It certainly isn't good for your fiscal well-being either. I mean, racking up emergency room debt or racking up healthcare debts that you can never climb out of, poor credit scoring. I mean, that's something that the Biden administration was working on, making sure that your medical debt didn't affect your credit score. You think that'll stay the case? We're just 10 months into the MAGA presidency 2.0. But this actually, sort of dovetails with some findings. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution poll that I alluded to yesterday, that they're giving it to us in drips. They don't have the whole poll out for us to look at, but they're giving it to us in drips, in bites. Okay, that's fine. So the headline from today's digest of the recent AJC political polling, the slice of the pizza we're getting today is that Georgia Democrats want a tougher response to Trump. I think they're getting it. Greg Bluestein wrote this morning, the AJC's new poll of likely Democratic primary voters show economic issues like jobs and inflation still rank as their top concerns, but standing up to Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans comes in a surprisingly close second at 20%. It underscores how deeply, he writes, the GOP president continues to shape Democratic politics. It also reflects the growing pressure among left-leaning voters on their party officials to confront Trump more directly in both rhetoric and policy. Why do you think Gavin Newsom is the darling on social media right now? He hasn't announced that he's officially running for president, but if you put a poll out right now, hang on, I'm going to look this up actually. I guarantee you he's got to be leading the horse race right now before the horses have been allowed to leave the barn, let alone gotten saddled up. And sure enough, here I see that in 2 of the 3 states that are showing some initial polling in Newsweek, Gavin Newsom is either atop or tied for the top in initial polling. We're talking Maine and Vermont. New Hampshire, he's second, but a close second to Pete Buttigieg. It's actually interesting that right now we see a 3-person field in those 3 states taking shape. Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Although it's too soon to be talking about this horse race like that. But that's, to me, the fact that Gavin Newsom is taking the fight to Donald Trump by mocking him mercilessly on social media has people kind of won over. My ex-sister-in-law, God love her, she was a Biden person from day one back in 2020. She had a Joe sticker on her truck in Cedartown, Georgia, Polk County, Marjorie Taylor Greene Country, Georgia. And she's a good old gal. Everybody loves her. Nobody has a crossword to say about her. Still, it's kind of bold. Roll around with a Joe sticker in Trump country. And she did. She chose Joe from day one. Me, I was more like, I kind of like Bernie again. I know how old he is, but I still like Bernie. Anyway, it worked in her favor, right? But she is, in fact, she sent me a Facebook group invitation to some Gavin Newsom 2028 group. And I said, no, not joining that because I don't, first of all, think it's official. Number 2, these Facebook groups tend to devolve rather fast if you disagree with someone on one dumb little thing I just deciding to stay clear of it. And honestly, right now, Gavin's not my guy. My guy might not even be a guy. No, my guy's a guy. But in fact, he's not even a candidate. I maintain that I want to see Jon Stewart run. But anyway, let me get back to the polling here in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. They want to see, Democrats that were polled in this, they want to see more tenacity out of their party. Bluestein writing, the dynamic is especially vivid in Georgia, where more progressive Democrats are urging a harder edge against the Republicans' second-term agenda. Nearly 1/4 of self-described liberals in the polls said opposing Trump is their top priority. Democrats are too meek. The words of Fred Edwards, a liberal voter from Cobb County who wants his party to show more resolve. They need to go after Republicans with the same vigor they used to go after us. Oh, absolutely. Too many times we take the gentlemanly approach to politics. Oh, I see what he's saying. He's saying the way Republicans bring the fight to Democrats. Here, I was thinking like the establishment taking on progressives, because I'm going to tell you something, y'all. I see a lot of establishment politicians in the Democratic Party want to take the fight to progressives like we're the scourge. We agree with the party platform like 99.5% of the way. In fact, I would argue more than the establishment does, more than moderates and centrists do. Awkward. The base's frustration, Bluestein writes, is already spilling over just 9 months into Trump's second term. Voters are demanding their candidates push to impeach the president. I mean, you can't do that because you don't have the House or the Senate. Massive protests on Georgia streets have pushed against his policies. Town halls have been marked by explosive exchanges and violent arrests. Younger Democrats are calling for generational change. Senator John Ossoff facing a tough re-election battle, and leading gubernatorial contenders have all embraced the edgier approach, urging sharper tactics to counter Trump's dismantling of federal agencies and steep health care cuts. Ossoff has also displayed more moderate tendencies, including a recent break with his party by voting for a failed GOP-backed bill to pay essential federal workers during the government shutdown. He has voted a dozen other times with other Democrats against other bills to reopen the government. This quote from a DeKalb County voter. Everything the Democratic Party has been doing is just not working. We've got to shake things up. Stephanie Hobbs, educator, North DeKalb County. We need to be more in your face because doing what we've always done isn't going to get us anywhere. Jason Estevez, gubernatorial candidate, quoted here, and I don't disagree with him when he says this. It's essential that we give voters something to vote for, not just something to vote against. We have to continue to remind people what we can do for them to grow the money in their pockets, but also make sure that our children have more opportunity than they did. Yet he and other prominent Democrats know the risk of ignoring the base's fury. The Democratic Party is facing plunging approval ratings. The AJC's May poll showing support at a 9-year low among registered voters, and the dissatisfaction is sharpest among young progressives, and which I will argue again isn't necessarily just because they're not being tough enough on Trump. To me, it comes from them being really tough, often at times, at progressives, who, I will remind some establishment folks in the Democratic Party, are independents too. Like they're not all in between the Republican and Democratic Party. Some of them are to the left of the party. They're the easiest to woo. One exasperated voter from Henry County. Democrats are letting him trample the Constitution. They're letting him break laws. Anita Bird, a military veteran from Henry County, and I don't understand why Congress isn't stopping him. Well, Anita, Democrats in Congress don't have enough votes to stop him, and Republicans are unwilling to stand up to him. We talked when the show started here about how Americans on either side of the aisle see the government shutdown. The strategy appears to be connecting with Democratic base here. They write, Greg Bluestein, the poll shows 84% of likely Democratic primary voters blame Trump and congressional Republicans for the shutdown, which has furloughed hundreds of thousands of federal workers and could jeopardize food assistance benefits for 1.3 million Georgians. Among likely GOP primary voters, the view is almost a mirror image. More than 3/4 say Democrats in Congress are responsible. About 10% blame Trump and his allies, and an additional 10% say both sides are at fault. Oh, don't you love the both siders? Ted Stone, a former Democrat, now a proud conservative voter in Lawrence County. How could you? That makes no. He said he sees the merits to both sides of many arguments, but on this one, he's drawing a line. Democrats own it. He says their position is that it's our way or the highway. How is that possible, dude? How is that possible? They have all three federal branches of government, both chambers in Congress, but it's Democrats' way or the highway? They literally only have the filibuster right now. And Republicans, if they wanted to, could say, we got to get past that and choose the nuclear option. Ted, former Democrat, now proud conservative. He goes, they lost power. Yes, exactly. Your first clue. And now they're like the little child stamping their feet saying, why didn't I get what I want? But polling shows what they want is what Americans want too. I bet you Ted Stone, has Ted Stone checked out what his insurance company is going to charge him for health insurance next year? I bet you Ted Stone hasn't done that yet. I bet you he'd be stamping his little feet too. Democrats are actually taking the fight, by the way, here in the state when it comes to the shutdown and who's responsible. If you're looking for a fight, the Georgia Democratic Party is actually doing this. Listen to this ad.
Open enrollment for many Americans begins on November 1st, which means that Congress is running out of time to impact the cost of premiums in the new year.
Gareth Fenley says she had no insurance before the Affordable Care Act. She's hoping she won't have to revert to that.
I just can't believe that they'll really do that they'll really let them expire.
Teresa Acosta here in Dunwoody closed down her small catering business and started looking for a job that will provide her a health coverage plan.
That's the only reason health insurance exists in this country, if you ask me. It's because the corporate class want to keep us shackled to what they offer, if anything, versus going against them as a small business person. By the way, there's just credits rolling on the screen here.
Here in Georgia, the political standoff sparked a protest outside of Congressman Mike Collins' office. Demonstrators in Monroe called on Collins to return to Washington and support Democrats' plan to extend health care tax credits.
Two of these fools running for U.S. Senate, Mike Collins and Buddy Carter. In Mike Collins' district, average increase of premium, 345%. If they don't change this.
Earlier when there was, music playing in the background, Collins and Carter's constituents face potential average ACA premium increases of 345% and 296% respectively. And as the credits rolled on the commercial, Carter and Collins aren't doing their jobs. We can't trust them to work on behalf of Georgians in the U.S. Senate. Democrats actually taking the fight. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's a minute 30, so I don't think it's going to air on any TV campaigns or anything like that. But you will see that throughout social media over the next few days. And as long as the shutdown continues, good. Necessary. Set the table for the 2026 Senate race with some harsh realities for Collins and Carter's constituency. Again, with those 345%, 296% health insurance increases looming. There was one more ad that they did, by the way, and this one touched on the Public Service Commissioner campaign. They took a quote from Tim Echols where he said something along the lines of, if you don't like me, you can fire me. And Democrats are like, well, okay, gladly. Take a listen to this.
Tim Echols and Fitz Johnson voted over and over and over again to raise our power bills.
Customers saw their bills increase for the sixth time in 2 years.
While the power companies made billions.
Skyrocketing profits after raising residential rates.
Tim Echols and Fitz Johnson took hundreds of thousands from donors linked to utility companies, raking in cash while profiting off of us.
You aren't happy with me. Now it's the time to get rid of me.
Vote out Republicans Tim Echols and Fitz Johnson.
All right, gladly, sir. His words, right? Georgia Democratic Party taking the fight to Republicans the way voters in that poll in the AJC say they want to see. All right, good. Good sign. It's the Ron Show. Georgia Now, Progressive Voice of VA. Tune in back after this. A little bit later in the show, we're going to talk with a candidate who's already jumped into the Georgia House 121 race, even before the current occupant of that House seat announced yesterday he was stepping away. So we will talk with Eric Gisler, who is ready to step in. There will be a special election for that race. He was already running for 2026, though, right? So I guess he's got a leg up on everybody else, left or right, for that House seat. And he represents, or wants to represent, I should say, 121, which is mostly Oconee County. That is Watkinsville, that is bedroom community, that is pretty affluent considerably, and so a red-leaning district. But he's got an uphill fight, but we'll talk with Eric Gisler about his campaign a little bit later. And the state of Georgia wants to come for a little bit more money out of us for visiting its state parks. And I'm not a big fan of raising fees or taxes or anything like that. But I am a big fan of Georgia State Parks, and I'm kind of okay with this because they haven't touched fees since 2009. They haven't touched the minimum wage since then either. But they haven't touched fees since 2009. And if there's one legacy to Jimmy Carter's governorship in the state of Georgia that we can proudly point to, it's the fact that this state has one of, if not the finest network of state parks in the country. And so we need to protect those at all costs. I don't have a whole lot of time to dive into this, but there's a story that I'll spend a little bit more time on later. Jason Armesto with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution filed this story that a lot of Georgia students, a lot of Georgia college students have flocked, as has happened throughout the rest of the country, to Turning Point USA in the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Now, I'm not sitting here suggesting the Democrats need to have a response mechanism to everything. A response to Project 2025, yes, just don't call it that. But maybe not necessarily a response mechanism to Turning Points USA, but at least a better effort at having a footprint, maybe not necessarily under the party umbrella, because, again, the party brand is a little toxic right now, but activism in and of itself on college campuses. Unfortunately, the environment right now is just kind of skeptically, awkwardly tenuous, I would say, just because in the aftermath of pro-Palestinian protests, you saw where a lot of institutions caved to the Trump administration, capitulated to scholastic officials, even state officials here in Georgia. So what would that activism look like? I think it's a conversation that folks on the left need to start having. And yeah, maybe whatever the left's version of Charlie Kirk is, needs to start going to the college campuses to having these conversations, along frat row even.
This is The Ron Show.
Heard weekdays, 4 to 6 p.m. on Georgia Now. The rerun, 8 to 10 a.m. the following weekday. And, of course, weeknights at 11 p.m. at Progressive Voices via TuneIn or Review podcast. Jill Nolan reporting from the Georgia Recorder, an Athens area Georgia lawmaker, it's hard to say all that, announced Tuesday that he's stepping down from the seat he's held since 2018, creating a new vacancy in the State House. That would be State Representative Marcus Wiedewer, a Watkinsville Republican, who said he's stepping down to focus more on his expanding work as Vice President of External Affairs at Hill Point, a real estate development and investment management firm. Wiedewer served as chairman of a budget subcommittee focused on general government spending. He's also currently leading a study committee that is looking at the impacts of expanding gambling in Georgia, a thorny issue that has eluded proponents for years. So, who's running to fill that vacancy? Well, I know a guy who is, and he's a Democrat. Eric, am I saying it right? Eric Gisler?
Yeah, you got it right.
All right. Not bad on the first try. Eric, thanks for joining the Ron Show today. How are you?
I'm doing well. A little bit overwhelmed, but excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, did you anticipate this, or did this come from out of nowhere?
It came from out of nowhere. I saw it when I woke up yesterday morning, and I realized it's time to get going.
Wow, and like right away you just said, let's do this. And literally that's what I saw on your social media from like about 15, 16 hours ago. You literally posted, let's do this. I love the enthusiasm. I love the tenacity. And in this era, it's difficult to find a lot of that outside the MAGA bubble. But I mean, here you are. Why are you ready to just jump right into the fire?
Well, I got a little bit of an early start. I actually ran against Mr. Wiedewer last year, but I got in very late in that race. I didn't actually get started until June. There's a whole backstory there, but we'll skip that. But I got in very early this year. I actually announced my candidacy for next year's election in August.
I see.
So when this happened yesterday morning, I kind of had the infrastructure in place already.
I see. All right.
Very easy to get going.
I like that you're making up for lost time, realizing you got in the race a little bit late last time for whatever reason it was, and now you're in on it early, and you've hit the ground running. So since the news came out yesterday, have you felt a little jolt, a little boost to the campaign? Any new eyes on? Obviously, you got my attention because we hadn't been paying attention to many state races because it's just we're still ensconced in public service races and here in Atlanta municipal races, et cetera, and so on.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely been a reaction. My phone's kind of been ringing off the hook. I've been meeting some new people, but for the most part, it's people I've known for years all around the state. I've been working hard over the last 8 or so years in Democratic politics, focused at the local and state level. So I've got a pretty good network, and everybody was really excited about anything they could do to help with the campaign.
Give us your background. I understand you went to Georgia Southern and UGA, and that's allowed. But a little bit more about your professional background. It's my understanding you worked in what is financial services technology.
Yes. Yep. I spent about 19 years at an online banking company through a few acquisitions. Ended up working at one point for Intuit through those acquisitions. So, financial services, technology for sure. I got laid off just before COVID hit in 2020. And then I found myself working in the startup world a few months later, In the meantime, I actually bought a small business. I have the olive basket. We do olive oils and balsamic vinegars here in Athens. And ever since, I've been doing both jobs. So I've been running that, and I've been to a few different companies in the startup world, mostly based in financial services and insurance tech.
So before I get into issues, you mentioned olive oil. Olive oil is like hella expensive now. It used to not be as crazy expensive as it is, but can you give some background on that? What's happening?
Well, a few years ago, there was a big shortage just in the harvest. And I think it was mostly based on weather, potentially related to climate change. So that was a big issue a couple years ago. But now, I mean, it's obviously the tariffs, right? I actually just got an email from my supplier a week or so ago saying that they've held off as long as they could. They're going to have to raise prices to us because of the tariffs. So the prices are going up a little bit. So far, I've not really had to raise my prices, which actually has me selling really high quality olive oil at pretty close to grocery store prices. So,
I'm gonna be hitting you up for that stuff because I think I cook everything in olive. I bathe things in olive. Are you kidding me? I love olive oil. It's weird. I don't like the taste of olives. I don't want to eat olives, but I love olive oil.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
So this is another dumb question about olive. Can you grow an olive tree in the U.S. domestically? Is there much of that here for you to lean on, or is it all outside the U.S.?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, California's been growing olives for decades, and they produce some really, really good olive oils, and I do get some from them. Northern Hemisphere harvest is really around this time of year, and they start hitting, my supplier around January. So yeah, California is great, but even here in Georgia, if you go a little bit further south, there's a few producers down there that are starting to make some really good oils.
Okay, that's good to know. Let's talk about issues, though. What are the issues that you find are most important for your district? Which, by the way, is a conservative-leaning district. So it wouldn't surprise me in the least if you said to yourself, you need to run something of a centrist or maybe even a right-leaning campaign while running as a Democrat. I've seen conservative Democrats running for office. So give me the pitch to that district in particular from your point of view.
Yeah. So I'm not trying to run a conservative or centrist campaign. I am.
Oh, good.
I've been saying kind of nonpartisan, but what I mean by that is we've gotten to the point now where facts and math and real actual data, verifiable data, just tell a story, right? And Oconee is a pretty red district, but I always like to tell people, a point of fact here, that 2022 runoff between Senator Reverend Warnock and Herschel Walker, people had to come back out for that runoff, right?
Yeah.
Oconee County had the biggest drop off in Republican turnout of any county in the state, which tells me Oconee County Republicans are more aligned with moderate, maybe country club Republicans, not so much MAGA. We've got plenty of MAGA. The Oconee Republican Party is as MAGA as they get, but your average Oconee Republican voter, I think their eyes are open to what they got with last year's election, and I think they did not get what they were hoping for.
Can you elaborate on that? I mean, talk to me about specific things that have happened since then that you think are actually, rankling nerves within the GOP.
Yeah, well, so I think, number one, the big billionaire bill. I can't call it that stupid name they gave it because it's anything but beautiful.
It ain't beautiful.
But yeah, I mean, the effects of that, among other things, are federal funding for healthcare, education, and food assistance are all being cut drastically, right? And we're seeing that now with the shutdown fight in Washington. And with those cuts coming down the pike, even if the Republicans manage to concede and extend ACA subsidies next year, the rest of that bill is still coming, and there's still going to be massive cuts to all those programs. And Oconee County is known for its education, but if we lose our Title I funding and our IDEA funding, that's going to impact families here in Oconee County.
I'm glad you brought IDEA up because it boggles the mind that there isn't at least the passing thought within MAGA that there could be folks within our voting bloc who are affected by that. I mean, learning deficiencies, or especially like they don't know a bias, they don't know partisanship. They affect everyone, no matter your ideological leanings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything to add to that. I think that's exactly right. And I know that the Republican leaning mothers here in Oconee County, when the school system tells them, sorry, we can't support your IEP plan anymore because the funding was cut, they're not going to like that answer when they get it.
Well, and it's not exactly as if the private schools are there to accommodate either. That's not really an option.
Right.
Talk to me a little bit, because I lived in Athens for about 5 or 6 years while I was sometimes going to school and sometimes not. I know it's a bedroom community. I know it tends to be a little bit more affluent than Athens, Clark County for sure. And so it is a little more right leaning. So when you speak about things like inadequate health care, tell me how that still impacts Oconee Countyans.
Yeah, I mean, Oconee is an affluent community. There's no question about that. But we do still have people in the community that depend on those services, right? SNAP funding, that's going to impact people here. The Oconee Area Resource Council runs a food bank, and we're already hearing that they're starting to run short on supplies.
Wow.
There's a Presbyterian church right in downtown Watkinsville that stocks a food cabinet, and these days that food's gone as soon as they stock it.
Mm-hmm.
They can't keep it stocked. And SNAP funding hasn't even run out yet. So we're already seeing the impact of tariffs and rising grocery prices and all that kind of stuff right here in Oconee County, even though some folks may not care to admit it.
Do you find when you're out on the campaign trail, I mean, I know you had a stunted campaign last cycle and are on the ground running early this cycle. Have you found, while on the campaign trail, interacting with conservative voters who at least give you an audience and show a sense of empathy? Or, I mean, is there any fluctuation whatsoever with that base? I think that's important, don't you? I think that's important. It's easy to make the case, but it's hard to make people empathize. Apparently,
it's going to be critical having those conversations, right? And I did go out last year. While the rest of the team was focusing on turning out the Democratic base, I was trying to target and put myself in front of people who might be willing to listen to a different perspective. Mm-hmm. And most of the time when I talked to them, I had plenty of doors slammed in my face, sure. But I had many that said, I don't really agree with you, but I appreciate you knocking on my door and having a conversation, right?
Yeah.
And that was last year, right? But back in the good old days when we had Joe Biden in office. Now, as we talked about, there's undeniable damage being done to Americans of every stripe. And I think those conversations are going to be a little bit more forthcoming this time around.
Is affordable housing or a lack thereof, is that an issue in Watkinsville, Oconee County?
Yeah, I think most people here would say it's probably not really. But my counter to that is, housing prices keep going up here in the county. My kids are in college, right? If they wanted to try to buy a house out of college, there's no way they could afford anything in Oconee County. Right. It's just not happening. And one of the big, things that attracts people to Oconee County, and young families in particular, is the school system, right? Yeah. It's known nationwide to have, one of the best school systems around. But we're not that far away from having a housing issue here in Oconee where those young families can't afford to live here. Mm-hmm. So it will definitely, if we don't have those new families moving in and supporting the school system, where that leads is not something I think most people in the county realize or really want to see happen.
So talk to me about what the Georgia legislature and whoever the next governor is, how that office and those two chambers, how they can help impact affordable housing, even in communities like Oconee County, where the folks that live there are quite comfortable, but there are those that like to live there that aren't. Tell me how the state government could step in and help bridge that gap.
Yeah, when it comes to housing, it really comes down to supply and demand. And if you really want to get down to it, it's local governments and zoning and ordinances and things like that really have the most impact. At the state level, though, we can do things to incentivize local governments to support certain things, right? If you think about housing affordability, I mean, there are ideas around greater access to accessory dwelling units, updating zoning codes to allow for more duplexes, triplexes, small scale multifamily buildings. Those types of things that you can kind of incentivize local governments to plan a little better and increase density, to really just at the end of the day put more affordable units on the market.
And here's the thing: it's been a million years since I've even been to Watkinsville, so I could be completely, not in the know on this. But we see here in Metro Atlanta, a lot of the exurban communities, like Suwannee comes to mind, Johns Creek comes. Like they're doing these town center developments where they are building affordable housing, whether it be apartment or condos above, street level retail. Is anything like that even bubbling up in Watkinsville, or has that already been done, or is there expansion opportunities there? Talk to me a little bit about that.
I hear about new projects that could support those kind of multi-use sorts of things, in the planning stages. We do have a facility, Wire Park, that opened up a few years ago. It's mostly a commercial facility, but they did build, a few apartment buildings out in front of it. And I think there are actually some more planned, and maybe even the construction started behind the main building there. But when those new units went on the market, they were on the market for $600,000.
Oh, that's not.
Yeah.
No, that's not what we're talking about.
So part of as far as the affordability, that's definitely something that could really be incentivized in Oconee County for sure.
Well, and here's what I don't understand. We have to deal with this here in Atlanta because of a long history of racism. MARTA is handcuffed because by design, it was only meant to go into certain neighborhoods to allow, the cleaning lady to come in, back in the day, but certainly not the rail. And I know Oconee County, a bit of a suburban county for the Athens DMA, but you've got to have transit, but you also have to have affordable housing if you don't have enough transit for folks that are going to work in the retail sector. And I know that Oconee County has plenty of retail, hospitality, food, and beverage, and those folks who can't afford to live in the housing that exists in Oconee County, where are they living?
Yeah, I think for the most part they're living in Athens, but that becomes problematic too because everybody's trying to live in Athens, and supply and demand is driving the rental prices up over there as well. It's probably even more of an issue in Athens.
And in Atlanta, of course, we also deal with gridlock. What is traffic like in the Watkinsville to Athens corridor because of that?
I used to live in LA, so if people ask me about
it's all relative.
Traffic in Athens, people who live here would tell you it's bad. I will tell you the road that I live on over the last 10 years has seen a lot of development. It's been widened. Traffic is way better than it was in the past. And I think, I actually have to give credit to the all Republican county commission. They've been approving projects to put in more roundabouts. That's been fantastic. I'm a big fan of roundabouts, and they've really worked out well here. People are always going to complain about traffic, but with some of the more recent developments, it's gotten a lot better, I think.
Okay. All right. Terrific. All right. Well, the ball is in your court. You've hit the ground running. Special election has not been announced yet, but I know you're out there pressing the flesh already and doing the good work. But real quick, there's a push from the left right now with SNAP benefits about to expire. They're trying to get the governor to acquiesce and open a special session to dip into the state's $14.6 billion rainy day fund to step in and boost SNAP benefits to keep folks fed through the holidays. Your thoughts on that? If you were in the State House right now, would you be behind that?
What I would like to see is the federal government dip into their reserve fund for SNAP. But if that's not going to happen, then yeah, absolutely. What is a rainy day fund for? and ours is way overstuffed, by the way. I mean, the rainy day fund is only supposed to be about $5 or $6 billion. We're sitting on about $14 billion on top of that, I think. So yeah, if there was ever a reason to dip into it, I think this is it.
All right, Eric Gissler running for the newly vacated, soon to be vacated, State House seat. That is District 121. You've been there since 2003. You call yourself a reluctant candidate, and I'm curious as to why that is.
Yeah, when I put that in, I probably need to change that. I'm 100% in the race. But I mean, if it comes down to it, there are a lot of things I'd rather be spending my time on than trying to run for office. But with the way the state is and the way the country is going, we need good leadership and we need a change. Republicans have been running the state for 22 years straight, House, Senate, and the governor's mansion. And you see where we've gotten, right? So we need a change, and I'm prepared to do that.
What is the county Democratic Party structure like there for you?
Here in Oconee?
Yeah.
Being a somewhat rural, exurban, red-leaning county, the Oconee County Democrats are fantastic. It's a very good group. We have a lot of participation. They're very active in the community, and I couldn't ask for better support.
Well, that's good to know. Once we get Georgia Now off the ground and running and ready to hit the road, we're going to take the show on the road and do some local shows. So I'll make sure that I put Watkinsville, Oconee County on the map so we can come out there and see you guys.
Yeah, please do. Love to have you.
All right, terrific. The website is pretty easy for you to find if you're looking to help Eric out with his campaign. It's his name, EricGisler.com. Eric Gissler, running for the House District 121 seat, recently vacated. Good luck to you, my friend, and thanks for joining the Ron Show today. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks again for having me.
All right, final few minutes. Today's Ron Show. It's never a good story when you find out a government entity is raising your rates, taxes, rates, otherwise. This one, though, I'm just going to make the pitch here. Ross Williams at the Georgia Recorder a few days ago reporting that the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, they signed off Tuesday on a proposal to raise fees to visit one of or all of Georgia's state parks. Under the plan under consideration, the cost of park at Georgia state parks for a day would double. But it's not much to begin with. The Georgia Department of Natural Resources, State Parks, and Historic Sites Division spent just over $109 million in the 12-month preceding July 1st, according to a new report from the State Department of Audits and Accounts, about half of which, $55.5 million, came from self-generated revenue sources like park passes, campsite rentals, golf courses, fees, and gift shop sales. State funds and bonds pay for about 43% of the division's expenses, or about $46 million. Remember now, the state has a $14.6 billion rainy day, so they could cover that. Anyway, and the federal government chipped in about $7 million, good for around 7%. So about 50% of the state parks' costs to run themselves come from the state or federal government. The auditors called the self-generated portion of the division's revenue significant. However, we noted additional revenue-generating opportunities related to price adjustments, marketing, and targeted future investments, the report reads. Generating revenue to staff and maintain parks must be balanced with ensuring Georgians can access these public resources. In all, the auditors came up with more than 24 recommendations dealing with topics from planning and maintenance to marketing and pricing. In response to a request for comment, State Parks and Historic Sites Division Chief of Finance, Catherine Darcy, said the department, quote, recently received the report and will be reviewing its findings and suggestions in the coming weeks. The price to park your car at a state park has been unchanged since 2009. $5 a day or $50 for an annual pass, and the auditors found that among southeastern states that charge for park access, Georgia's fees are the lowest. The report found that Arkansas, Kentucky, Missouri, and Tennessee do not charge for daily or annual passes, and Tennessee does not charge for the majority of its state parks. But Tennessee is also one of those states that doesn't do an income tax because they are hugely funded by tourism dollars. Anyway, listen, I'm no fan of raising fees or taxes or anything like that. But if you're going to go to a state park, spending $10 to park and enjoy the entire park, no matter how many people are in the car, dude, it's worth it. If it's $100 for an annual pass, just get it. They also even pitched an idea where if you get your vehicle tag renewal, you'll get a discount. Great idea. It'll bring in more revenue. And more people will enjoy those state parks. Go see Cloudline Canyon. My God, go see it. It's the best park in the state. Anyway, it's going to do it for The Ron Show. Thank you so much for listening. We air weekdays 4 to 6 p.m. on Georgia Now. 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. Show notes as always at RonShowATL.com. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow.